Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast channel. My name is Jed. We are exploring a belief held by many in our society and definitely influencing everyone in our society, that everything is relative to personal opinions, beliefs, or perspectives. Whatever is true is whatever seems true to you. And aren't we all entitled to our own personal truth? And if someone therefore believes something to be true, that's just as valid as someone who has expertise. So we've been exploring that and how it functions within society, within our soul, and within conversations, because we've been participating in a dialogue, exploring ideas. By the way, this skill that we are here to learn on how to understand, think, communicate, and explore ideas. That single skill is called the dialectic. We've been watching someone demonstrate the dialectic as they explore this particular idea with someone who has it in a cozy Greek corner cafe restaurant. So we've been able to see how it functions in a person. How that person is able to explore ideas or not, how it manifests in his ability to talk with his friends and in his relationship. And of course, we are, because these are true principles of reality, we can even apply them to society. Society is made up of people after all. So we've been exploring that one. Because the implication of everything being relative to personal opinions and beliefs, well, that means the biggest, cruelest, most sadistic moron is just as good and capable of leadership as the kindest, wisest, most knowledgeable person. And of course, that's our current society, isn't it? We have many positions. We currently allow this belief to manifest as a sickness in our society, allowing the absolute worst human beings functioning in the absolute worst ways, hurting our species and our planet that we share for fun and profit, because they lack any kind of expertise or understanding of what's good and beneficial, and are operating from belief. And we allow it because, hey, who's to say what's right and wrong? And if someone believes that killing all non-Christians or non-MAGA or non-billionaires is good, then that's just as true as anything else. So while we're exploring this idea, we're also exploring what's the difference between understanding and belief. Let's say you recognize this because you've been reading this book, or you've been reflecting on the idea that it is all relative, and you realize, holy crap, it seems that when anyone operates out of belief, they can only do harm. And belief, if everything is relative, there's no point in developing understanding, learning to think, learning the dialectic, fulfilling our purpose. So I better wake up and start learning how to think and understand. But what is that exactly? So we've been learning how to move from belief, which functions through interpretation, into understanding and seeing what's there to be seen without interpretation. So we've been given a few exercises to play this game and see the difference. The Garden of Eden story. That is, while we're addressing perhaps the most common belief of our zeitgeist, excuse me, big sneeze. We're also using as an example one of the most common religious beliefs that have also been influencing our age, society, culture, and species. The ideas marketed to us through Christianity. For example, slavery is good because Adam and Eve disobeyed the authority figure. A jealous, cruel, impulsive authority figure, as we accept in our politicians, capitalists, and religious figures, is good, because the Adam and Eve story has God acting in that jealous, cruel way, irrational way. Women are bad and should be treated poorly, because after all, didn't Eve trick Adam into causing the first sin? Oh, sin is disobeying authority figures. All of these sorts of ideas are told to us as real, are real because they exist in the Adam and Eve story. So you have an exercise you can do if you want. Write out all of your thoughts about Adam and Eve, and then go ahead and open the book, find the book, open the book, read the book, and conclude. And you'll see a difference. And in that activity, you can come to learn, or start to learn, the difference between interpretation and understanding. And if you reflect on the implications, you can start to see the stakes of learning to move from belief into understanding. How many women have been abused, murdered, tortured to death? Justified from a story that actually wasn't even read as it was. Lies. What does it mean that our most trusted political and religious officials have been lying to us about what's written in that story? If all of our beliefs about the Adam and Eve story are different from what's actually there. What does it say about all these other things that are justified from these early fairy tales that are not even reading the original text? What does that say? That highlight the stakes of learning to read with understanding and not believe through interpretation. Another exercise that you can see the stakes and learn how to move from belief to understanding is the Jesus resurrection from the dead story. So we're learning that we have to construct a theory of understanding in a certain way. For example, if we find that the gospel writers copy Mark, what does that say about what text is original? If Mark finishes with the crucifixion, what does it say about the story added by Luke and the others of Jesus' resurrection from the dead? If Paul was written before that, and he says he makes claims about what is needed for our salvation that are different from what Jesus says in Mark, and oppose those things, what does that say about Paul? If Paul is claiming to be a higher authority than even Jesus, and yet murdered Christians for fun, what can we conclude about the person that Paul is? If Luke created this story that Paul had a divine illumination experience, and this brief experience suddenly changed his whole character and personality, turning him from an awful murderer into someone good actually, and worth believing. But Paul never said anything like that. And if we added to that a recognition from reading Paul that he is always trying to find ways of justifying him as a authority figure, the CEOs and I saw a thing from Paul Bet Davidson this morning. The people who claim to be experts in finance to get the money from all of the investors. are all claiming to be authority figures. They're all finding ways of justifying their authority. They'll maybe have a photo next to Kobe Bryant or something like that. They'll get Tony Robbins on their podcast, all these ways of justifying their authority because they are believers and they want people to believe them as an authority figure. If Paul was doing that, and this divine illumination experience would have been a good way of adding to that story, but he didn't talk about it, only Luke did. What can we conclude? So that's understanding, that's reading, making conclusions from reason and evidence that are available. What are the implications? Easter isn't real. Oh, there are also parts. Why was this fairy tale added or interpreted, added to the text? Jesus coming to life after 3 days of his physical body being dead, like some sort of decayed zombie. Why? Well, here's another idea that comes from Paul. The rapture. That God will come back in our lifetime and put an end to the cause of bad things. Demons. When the fall of Jerusalem and the destruction of the church there happens. So, turned out it didn't happen. By the way, we see how believers function from this example in a way called goalposting. If the evidence proves the belief wrong, instead of changing the belief like understanding would, because we're developing a theory based on reason and evidence, not because mummy and daddy said so, otherwise you go to hell. That's how we get beliefs, authority figures. But if we get new reason and evidence, we change our theories. We grow, we learn, we evolve. Instead of doing that, a believer will say, oh no, okay, the rapture was supposed to happen in Paul's lifetime, but actually it's supposed to happen in my lifetime. Because reasons that I will make up. So every Christian has been saying this since forever, and when it proves that their beliefs are false, instead of changing their beliefs, they change the standard for reason and evidence. Goalposting, we call that. Moving the goal. I missed the goal, and instead of saying you don't get the points for that goal kick, I will actually, after the fact, I'll move the goalpost over to where I happen to have kicked it. Goalposting. So why did they have to create this bigger lie to drown out the fact that their first lie, the rapture, disproves their whole belief? What does that say about Easter? It's made up as a lie to save something that should have disproved their whole belief tradition? But what about the Easter eggs? So we also can practice what it means to go from belief to understanding by addressing the doubting Thomas. Hey, by the way, on those accounts where Jesus came back to life, was he physical or was it a spiritual form? Because don't modern Christians believe that it was a physical, zombie-like thing? So we looked at how we could do that. Look at the evidence and reasoning. Hey, did Jesus have to walk through a closed door? Did he appear to people, but other people who were there, who weren't blind, had the capacity for sight, weren't able to see him? And of course, the doubting Thomas example. Oh, Thomas put his fingers through the holes in Jesus's hands caused by his crucifixion in a physical way, but was that there? Only way to find out is to not believe the book or me or anyone else, but to read it for yourself. That's developing understanding. So, we're learning how to go from belief to understanding, seeing as we're learning the significance of belief as the cause of human problems and the justification this particular one, everything is relative to belief. Beliefs are okay, actually. The justification for all human exploitation and suffering when we allow belief-based groups to be in leadership or to lead our own individual soul. We went one step further to encourage people to read Boltman's work on Christianity and Maccobee's book, The Mythmaker. Boltman's work takes all of the key ideas that we take as what it means to be Christian, accepting Jesus as the only begotten Son. You need to believe in him for the atonement of man's sins, and who died for man's sins, and he'll return on the clouds of heaven to redeem the believers, deprive the demonic forces of their power. All of these basic tenets. He explores, where are they exactly? They're not in the Gospels. They're in the writings of Paul. And Jesus had the opposite. So, if you are able to read it for yourself, you can come to a conclusion. And that conclusion is, do believers even believe what they believe is their beliefs? And the answer is something you'll have to find for yourself. Maybe that womp simple sound. So Maccabee's work builds on that and says, well, where did Paul get all his personal beliefs from? Oh, and by the way, that means we can read properly, because if we go through these exercises, we'll read that every human being who's written in the Gospels or in the Bible are just fighting for their own personal beliefs and interpretation. In fact, that might be the human condition. If understanding is true and universal, if knowing is the true universal experience of divine luminosity, mind turning around to know intelligence itself, and if the self is the ultimate goal, purpose for all beings, which is, again, transpersonal, beyond the personal, and those things are our goals and what brings us benefit, could we say that the human condition is a kind of conflict against what we need and want, those things, by instead fighting for our own personal beliefs and interpretations? Well, instead. I said instead twice. If that's the case, we can see the importance of the dialectic, because to reach those transpersonal states of mind and beyond that self, the tool is, well, if those things are the objects and goals of the transpersonal, then we have to use what is transpersonal or true or objective or rational, all of those things. That's understanding with a capital U, or dianoia. The skill of understanding, the dialectic. Therefore, our purpose as an intelligent being is to master the dialectic. The opposite of the dialectic is to try and be a debate pervert.
Debate weirdo.
A debate weirdo, and try and justify your own beliefs. Now, in our current age, we only have a few people learning the dialectic, if any. Well, not if any, there's the people who watch this channel, of course. And maybe there are some others out there. And most people we see in our society are just trying to justify their own personal beliefs and play out the tragic, horrific implications of those false beliefs that oppose truth and understanding and benefit and goodness, impose them on others with impunity. So therefore, belief is the cause of all human problems, and that conflict between the personal and the transpersonal, between belief and understanding, the nature of human conflict, a war against the universal, or mind. So, it seems that every writer in the Bible are humans. And therefore, with the human condition, they're all fighting for their own personal beliefs and interpretation. we talked about how, therefore, we should be able to judge every human being who's ever existed on a kind of graph. How far up the development to the transpersonal or objective and universal, rational, how far up the mastery of the dialectic and logos has someone reached, and how much have they used that understanding to understand and therefore purify their own personal false beliefs. The standard would have to be, therefore, a mastery of the dialectic to reach the objects that are only attainable through the dialectic, reality itself and self, or wisdom and the ultimate state of enlightenment, knowing the self, whilst also having a freedom from our own personal beliefs and the cause of those personal beliefs and images about self and reality. So, to see reality itself and to remove your personal beliefs about reality itself. To see the self and remove the false image of the self. So, if that's the human condition and the human purpose, then everyone, including all of the people who wrote in the Bible, would be at some level of on that graph or chart that you want to make. So, interesting, isn't it? And of course, we could apply that to the characters in the book ourselves, and we can use it to chart our own personal development. Now, there's a little caveat to that. It's difficult to be able to judge where you're at, so that's why it's a 2 or more person game. Try and find someone to talk to about this sort of stuff and reflect with. Okay, so we've gone from reflecting on the nature of this belief, is it all relative, and how it functions in opposition to understanding. We've developed some exercises on how to ourselves move from understanding using those key elements, the Garden of Eden story, the resurrection story, and learning to read by recognizing the different writers in the Bible, and looking at Boltman and Macrocosm, and comparing Paul's account of in the Galatians from what Luke said about his change of mind or his conversion experience on the road of Damascus in Luke in Acts. There's another thing you can do. And then we've gone on to, okay, if that's how we move from belief to understanding, using something that's a text that's easy to obtain, very significant historically, culturally, and right now in the way we perceive reality in our age. We've gone from that to, okay, now let's understand what is going on. Because in the peak experience, or the turning point in the whole story of Jesus, is a experience of divine luminosity. That, of course, is mind knowing itself. So we talk about the 3 elements, the development of understanding through the dialectic, number 1, or number 3. Number 2, using that dialectic to be able to explore ideas and then experience them directly, the experience of mind, that's divine luminosity. So understanding and mind, and number 1, the self. The cause even of that divine luminosity and that which experiences those peak states of mind. So we've been developing an understanding. So now we're looking at what's the difference between our understanding of this peak experience and how others make sense of it. So we looked at how the words used to explain that peak experience by those who don't have understanding. Well, Moses and Elijah. Moses representing a changing of one's life, as Moses led the people out of a life of captivity and slavery and gave them principles or commandments. And Elijah is supposed to have restored all things. So is there a healing element that you can personify with Elijah in that luminous experience, mind, a higher state of mind? And is there a changing of your life kind of result of that experience? Could that be why they used their belief systems lacking understanding, lacking true philosophy? Is that why they use those words to talk about it? We mentioned that there are some examples of people who've had that luminosity experience to the point where it shines through their physical body, their physical appearance or clothes. We went on to talk about how there are accounts of such experiences in Plato, Tibetan philosophy, Korean Buddhism, Hinduism, Chinese philosophy, shamanism, and many, many others, which would mean that this isn't a religious or specific to belief experience. It's a universal experience possible for all those who have mind. Now, understanding it would involve comparing and contrasting the ways these different traditions make sense of it with how we do it here using the logos, using the building blocks and skill of understanding. How can we make sense of it with understanding, and how do belief traditions make sense of it differently? So that's where we are. Now, what we're also recognizing is this human journey using 3, understanding, to reach 2, those peak divine luminosity states of knowing, and 1, to go through it to know the self, which is already defined in the text as the nature of philosophy and the human purpose, our human journey. Whenever we have either an experience or insight, or a deeper understanding or a new understanding, we have to recognize and anticipate the counter-attack from belief. Because there are 2 things we're here to do with the dialectic: master the logos to reach truth, and master the dialectic and logos to purify what's false. And problems are problems, as we just defined the nature of the human condition. The human condition is to oppose the truth and the universal and the good because of the functioning of unexamined false beliefs that we carry from childhood. So, all human problems are a kind of block. And we've been representing this on the board with this diagram here. Here are some steps, rational steps, using the logos to reach a intelligible goal with excellence that's personally meaningful to yourself, is how we reach the true, the good, and the one, or good things for our benefit, true things, real things, and things that can unify and put an end to conflict. But every step of the way, the human condition is we also have to address a block caused by belief. Belief is the cognitive function that opposes that rational development to the achievement of our highest goal. So you could say that our beliefs are a shadow, or vice is the shadow of virtue, in that there are also steps that we play in belief, only they are irrational steps. That's called our drama. The steps you go in. Have you noticed that certain people, hard to see for yourself, but if you had friends who you've seen, first they do this, and then they do this, and then they create this problem, and then they blow up at that problem that they created. Then they call the person a slut or a bitch or something like that, and then that justifies them doing this to them, and then it always ends with them in this state of mind, mad and alone and hating women once again. And they're in this loop over and over and over again their whole lives. And by the way, I've noticed their parents have been in the same loop as well. I wonder about their grandparents and wonder how far back it goes. Have you noticed? That's called fate. Keeping us on the train tracks of a predetermined series of irrational steps that lead to an unintelligible goal, or a self-fulfilling prophecy, a self-confirming prophecy that says, I guess this false belief about women or about reality or about how I suck was right all along, and this false image of myself was right all along. That's what we live out in our human experience, in our dramas, in our daydreams, in our tangents, even in our fantasies, and especially in our dreams. So therefore, to be in the game, we have to have the blue stuff. We have to set for ourselves a personally meaningful goal that we want to reach with excellence, that will surface all of our blocks along the way, so rational steps, of course, to reach that goal. And as we surface these blocks, we learn to address them rationally through the dialectic, allowing us to purify those blocks and also at the same time master that dialectic. And the mastery of the dialectic is what we need to reach the highest goal of self. And the functioning of self, which is of course the dialectic as well. That's what it means to be in the human game. Set a high, personally meaningful goal and seek to achieve it with excellence. Along the way, you'll be learning the dialectic to master that intelligible goal, and also you'll be learning the dialectic to get rid of the blocks along the way. You won't be able to reach your goal with excellence unless you're doing both. Therefore, universal task, necessary task, the meaning of life for all intelligent beings. Which means, as we are coming to recognize that there are certain universal high goal stages, if your ultimate goal is to know the self, you reach these peak experiences of divine luminosity along the way. But as we seek to experience and understand them, we can expect the counterattack. So it seems Aaliyah is doing very well in following the dialectic, exploring these ideas. And she even seems excited to go off and do her own reading and do these exercises. We see Harry personifying belief, and we can expect Angry Harry or Dirty Harry, which is a character mentioned in the book. Harry likes Dirty Harry. Dirty Harry, we can expect to jump in and try and sabotage our work, to distract from the dialectic. That's where we are. Let's jump in. And I'm outside. And now I'm inside. And now we're on the board. No, the book. Okay, let's go back a bit to the end of the conversation with Aaliyah. Let's start with the light experiences. So, when Harry jumps in, right, so Aaliyah jumps in because Harry doesn't like the idea that, so we're discussing this light experience as what was supposedly transformed Jesus into thinking he was enlightened, and Luke seemed to make up a story about Paul suddenly changing his character because of this light experience. Harry doesn't like that. He thinks that belief should change you. And these experiences of light and reality and the pure white light or pure divine light of consciousness itself, that's crazy. That's for crazy people. The sort of shit that you'd hear in the 70s maybe. Enlightenment, peak states, consciousness. There's no such thing as consciousness. We're good Christians who have to go to work and pay our taxes and go home and beat our wives for not having dinner on the table. The sort of stuff that you'd hear in the 70s. And I suppose you hear people trying to dismiss their own peak states of mind and consciousness today. And in fact, Harry says, let's jump in here. Harry's saying, you've got it all wrong, you got it backwards. It wasn't the light that made the experience that Paul or Jesus had great and transformed him. It was the messages of Jesus that transformed Paul. The religious life of Christians starts and ends with the cross. Not Edison, which is a stupid joke because Edison made the light bulb. The fact is, as I heard it at my college, experiencing light experiences without Jesus starts a fire that pagans burning in hell will see. And Joseph said, well, actually, you're lying. So this is another issue with belief. As believers try to move the goalposts with evidence, they also try and sabotage reason. Because reason and evidence is what we make use of in the dialectic. So they can lie. Lying is OP. So here he is lying, as many businessmen do, or politicians, or religious officials, all of the people who seek power in our disgusting, backwards capitalist world, seem to realize, oh, I can scam people out of their money and labor if I lie to them. Here he is lying. And Joseph says, I don't think you said, it doesn't sound like something you learnt at UCSB college. So what? Who cares? Says Harry. So that's another thing that believers will try and do to silence Logos. So we talk about these steps. This is for any goal. So long as your goal is something that you care about, is personally meaningful to you, and is something intelligible, has a rational element to it that you can learn and master and understand, then this is universal. Because the dialectic is the highest expression of that. So as you learn to master math or music or whatever it is you're learning, every step of the way you can be learning about the dialectic, and ultimately, once you reach this personal goal, you set a higher one, and then a higher one, until the goal becomes the dialectic itself. Or mastering the skill of understanding. So these are the cognitive functions we can have. There are only really 5 of them. Image thinking, which is caused by beliefs. Understanding, which is the realm of the transpersonal, that can lead to the peak state of knowing. And of course, we want to move through to knowing the self. And we can wonder if there's a higher kind of understanding and a higher kind of knowing of the self. So the reason we have goals that we can reach is and go through that process is because in doing so, you have to address the beliefs and develop understanding. Understand music, understand medicine, understand math, understand cooking, whatever it is you're interested in. The difficulties is the conflict between your beliefs and understanding. That's it. And the images of yourself behind them. And as the dialectic is true and universal, is benefit, goodness, puts an end to conflict or brings us into a unity or oneness, and is true or real for everyone, then it's something we're all here to learn and lead to our highest states of mind. That's of course wisdom, and to knowing the self. In other words, if you stay in the game, if you learn and master and practice the dialectic, you'll reach the end. Therefore, human problems are nothing other than The imitation of knowing, I believe I know because I'm copying my minister or pastor or imam or rabbi or parent or preacher or whatever. So all of those are examples of images that we imitate from the physical world of perception. It's all relative to perception, of course. As an imitation of knowing, and knowing functions through understanding, or every experience of knowing you use to develop your understanding. The functioning of belief is to shut down understanding. That's the nature of man's irrationality. Some people say we need to accept war because man is by nature irrational and cruel and savage and greedy and stupid. We need capitalism because we're all greedy. We need a punitive justice system because we're all selfish and we're all criminal. We need war because we're all savage. Bullshit. That cruelty, savagery, or irrationality is the functioning of our problems. Only when you are carrying a belief and functioning through belief do you act in that way. Why? Because belief can't be rational, because that's understanding. Belief can't do good, because that's understanding. Belief is not true, because that's understanding. Belief does the opposite. It blocks that. So although that savage irrationality people talk about is nothing other than human beings in their problem in a culture that have neglected to understand the nature of human problems. We are simply understanding the nature of human problems, which has been known before in the Greek Golden Age, called the Hellenic Age. So we're becoming Hellenic, or rational, because it's rational to ask the question, well, why do we have problems? Why, if understanding is good for everyone, if we have enough food to feed everyone, and so many good people want to, why the fuck do the stupidest, cruelest, sadistic people have all the money and refuse to end poverty when they could? Why doesn't Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or the Pope or the presidents ever end world hunger when they absolutely could, easily? Why do they instead want to act in a cruel, irrational way? To ask that question is to be rational. You ask the same thing about your own life. Why would I sabotage my own development? What am I here for? And why do I fight against my interests? Because that's the functioning of belief. Functions against understanding, while understanding helps. Therefore, if understanding makes use of self-reflection and language, or evidence and reason, beliefs function in opposition to logos and reflection, or opposition to reason and evidence. So if you've ever talked to a capitalist or a business bro, Paul Bet Davidson's of the world, he's just an example of like a very clear personification of the ignorance of capitalism and scammers. He's a multi-level marketing dude who has become a right-wing podcast bro and tries to associate his images with billionaires and celebrities to pretend to be a belief-based authority figure. And he only ever lies about the evidence instead of evidence or ousia, and only ever seeks to distract or tell long monologues or go on tangents to distract from any reason. He will tell a boring ass story in his weird, stupid accent to try and get you to forget what you've just asked him about some scam that he's just done. So, that's all belief. So here is an example of Harry, as we are developing an understanding of the right objects of understanding, the peak experiences of mind, the divine luminosity, as well as learning how to understand it, building a theory based on reason and evidence, comparing, contrasting with other descriptions of that state from different traditions, and how they make sense of it. So here we are above the green line. We have to anticipate the human counter-attack from belief. So here is Harry saying that evidence, or ousia, remember there's only two things we make use of really, ousia and logos. Mind that can turn around and reflect on itself, which is the peak experience or evidence of reality. It's even the evidence of self, because our goal to know self is beyond experience. But we can see evidence of the existence of self because it reflects itself over this purple line as mind. So the first hypothesis of Parmenides is the self that functions, so it's the definition of self. Its demonstration is in mind. How that division, so here's our dialectic seen in the structure of reality itself. Knowing, or mind, divides up the use of the divisions of mind, or the aspects, eidos, not forms, mistranslated in modern academia as Plato's forms. They're not forms, they're eidos. The aspects, or eidos, are what we use in understanding in our lives. That's division. The conclusion would be to use that art, so in all of our divisions and how we have a good relationship, how we have a good intimacy, how we have good relationship with our dreams, how we master our skills, our personal hobbies, it's all the dialectic. Making use of ousia, which happens to be mind, and reasoning, which happens to be understanding, or evidence and reason, ousia and logos. So our conclusion is a mastery of the dialectic. That mastery of the dialectic, so remember the dialectic, the conclusion, the fourth category of the four categories of the structure of thought that we're here to master as the meaning of life, do you have an example on the board? Has two aspects. Definition, the self in relation to itself. Oh, that's our highest state. Ultimate enlightenment, the self knowing itself. How does the self function, or that gives evidence of itself? So we use this peak experience in philosophy to learn about what must be its cause. How does that self relate to others? Or in this case, for other being. Self in relation to other generates being or mind. Mind, second hypothesis of Parmenides. The third hypothesis is how it functions or divides up mind to others. So how does mind relate to other others, other to other others? How do we use our mind to function in relationships or learning or philosophy or reading? Oh, as a result of that functioning called dianoia or understanding, or the third hypothesis, giving us 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The triad of self in our highest existence or rulership, mind in our power and our activity of understanding, triad. As a result of that, we can synthesize, which means to take from all of these divisions, find a key term, or a ruling term, or a common term. It's the dialectic in all of it. Healthy relationship, dialectic. Healthy how to explore dreams, dialectic. How to solve problems, dialectic. How to explore ideas with others, dialectic. How to reach truth, dialectic. Therefore we synthesize as the conclusion From that other to other, we come up with a single other. That's synthesis, the dialectic. That we can then relate back to the self. That's the analysis part. So conclusion has those two parts. Therefore, as a result of creation and our existence, of evolution to wake up to language and self-reflection, to the meaning of life, we can relate back to that self which we defined with the dialectic, giving us the meaning of life, or that for the sake of which. Why leave self only to return? Because we return with the dialectic. That's the synthesis that becomes the analysis. Therefore, our purpose is to, how do we use the dialectic to relate back to the self? In two ways: to know the self and to remove the false image of self. That's the cause of all human problems, because it's the false image of self. So we can also, by the way, use this same model to understand all human problems. It's a false image of self. That's the definition of all human problems. That demonstrates as our state of mind. That's the cause of our fate or our drama or our repeating cycles of problems. That leads to the conclusion of our self-fulfilling prophecies, stuck, and our tragedy. That's belief. An image of self that we believe in, states of mind that are caused by that false belief, the drama that plays out to teach us about that, and the tragic end that will await us if we fail to do our purpose. Therefore, from the self to mind, so there's our root principle, the principle of all principles, self. There's our evidence or experience. There's our reasoning, number 3. So there's our use of evidence and reasoning that we call understanding. How do we learn things? Evidence and reason. What makes ignorant people ignorant? What makes believers harmful and ignorant? They oppose evidence and reasoning. That's just that simple. But now what we can see by using the dialectic is where reason and evidence comes from. Because if you're rational, if you're intelligent, you'll ask, well, where does reason and evidence come from? What's the highest example of evidence or experience? And what's the highest example of reason? Oh, that's ousia and logos. Reason itself, logos. Experience itself, ousia. And then if you're rational, you'll take, like any question, oh, we have a mind. What can I do with it? I feel sad, and sometimes I feel happy. What's the happiest I can feel? Right? You're playing a video game. Oh, I have an attack. What's the biggest attack? What's my alt that I could press? It's like the first thing you would ask. What's my alt? What's the best I can do? And of course, what's the purpose? So our purpose is to use evidence and reason, or ousia and logos, to master understanding, as a dialectic, to reach our higher states of mind and go beyond, go through that experience with understanding to know the self. The cause of evidence and reason, mind and understanding, ousia and logos, the self. And as a result, that's called the art that makes use, or the synthesis, that which synthesizes all that. There's the dialectic, which is the art of reasoned self-reflection, and the analysis part, or the final conclusion, to know the self and purify the false idea of self. So there's the two things that we're here to do. Know the self, there's the path through the art of dialectic, and to purify the false image of self through the dialectic, which is the cause of our problems. Pretty neat. I think it's neat. So that's what it means to be Homo sapiens, man the thinker. Hellenic. is the name of the age, or the not the age, the culture. If humanity is to survive, it's to become Hellenic. And the study is philodianoia, love of understanding. So every step in the positive, you can gain insight into human problems. So we can see demonstration. So there's our peak state of mind. Harry called it, what do you call it? Woo-woo, some people call it, or hippie stuff. New Age, bunko, and pagan Oriental mishmash. So there's a way of dismissing evidence, or, well, the highest experience of Usia. And he's been saying all dialectic or logos is just word games. So belief functions in opposition of that. In principle of reality. Also, in individuals, we saw that's evidence and that's reason. So now in the dialogue, we have Harry dismissing the evidence of Jesus and many other figures from other traditions having that peak experience of Usia. And even the I think in the Bible it was called something Usia. Panusia or parousia. So it even has the word in the name for the Christians. And here we have him dismissing reason. He's lying. He's being blind to the evidence, and he's lying about the reasoning, and he's trying to start a fight. That's why scammers always engage in personal attacks. It's always trans people or gay people or women or this character I hate, or Hassan I hate, or Joe Rogan I hate, or not Joe Rogan, he doesn't understand it, or Marx I hate, or you're an evil socialist, because they only want to start fights. Because reason solves problems and brings about our excellence. Those who are trying to conserve beliefs, conservatives that harm because they personally profit or because they're sadistic psychopaths, only ever try to do war, or keep the war machine running, or make it personal, cultural bullshit. Gossip, personal attacks, because fighting will distract from reason. So, in the same way, belief functions in opposition to our purpose to develop understanding and to know mind, to put the two together, Apollo and Aphrodite, to reach the self. So too, in the microcosm, believers oppose reason and evidence in various ways that we call debate.
Debate pervert.
Debate pervert bullshit.
Perverts. Let's be honest, perverts.
Let's be honest, debate pervert.
I'm a debate pervert.
And I have an axiomatic
of the Bible.
Brilliant.
Off the perky, call me Kirky.
RM is off the perky, call him Kirky with that line. So that's what we're seeing. Joseph dismissing that peak state of mind and dismissing reason by lying and trying to start a fight. Which is to be expected, because what we've just done is, I should probably write it down properly so we've got it here. We can recognize that. So a dialectic has two sides to it. So reality, the nature of reality, and our purpose. So let's get the structure. If it is, and if it isn't. So to explore an idea, you have to take both. What kind of reality exists if the thing is real, or beauty exists, or whatever you're exploring, and if it doesn't. Within there you have the definition, the subject in relation to itself, demonstration, how that defined subject relates to another, self to other, division, how that functioning other then relates to other others, and then conclusion, which has, of course, synthesis to create this other, and analysis, relating it back. To the self. So we're saying in reality, in the macrocosm, this is the principle of as above, so below. The structure in the text, we called it structural similarity, didn't we? We see the definition is the self, which happens to be the first hypothesis of Parmenides, because we haven't talked about Parmenides a lot, but Parmenides gives us these a dialectical exploration of every single one of these. So it's kind of a masterpiece. How self functions to others, or the functioning of self, giving us the evidence of self that we can use as our highest source of self-reflection to infer something beyond even experience, is mind, or the brilliant light. Move it over a little bit. Mind, or the brilliant light of being, we've been talking about in the text. Division, dianoia, understanding. So how that functions is our understanding, or dianoia. Which is the functioning of the inherent logos within the knowingness or ousia of mind. So as a result of understanding how to solve your problems, understanding how to read, as we're doing here, learning how to read, understanding your dreams, understanding the ideal relationships, understanding how to solve your problems, from those divisions you find, oh, there's a key theme. That synthesis, dialectic, which makes use of, which is the art, the skill, but the skill you have to learn and practice, and because it benefits, we call it an art as well, of ousia and logos together. So if that's what we have access to, the A and B button of being a human being, we can see the meaning of life must be definitionally dialectic. That's why we mention it often. It's the right thing to do. Yeah. Get the right color. There we go. Analysis. The analysis would be to how do we use the dialectic, the analysis part, to the self. That would be synthesis. Gotta sneeze. I'm not sneezing. Synthesis. The other. And analysis. Back to self. So other back to self. So how do we use the skill or art of ousia and logos, which is the dialectic, to relate back to the self? To know and be able to show or function through, to know and show the self, or returning with the logos. Self, we could call it the self logos. To know the inherent intelligibility of the self and to be able to function through it. And to, in our perfection and mastery, and to purify the image, false image of the self, which is called formally the pathologos. Or pathologos. So here we see the nature of reality as it unfolds and returns. We see the cognitive functions that we can awaken and participate in our development in that very return. But also it gives us a model for the microcosm, or the very a way of understanding the very conversation we're in here. Because for the microcosm, or this conversation itself, we have evidence or experience. So we'll say experience or evidence, because evidence is something that we have an experience that we use. Experience or evidence. Here is our reasoning. There's our reason and evidence that we use through step-by-step reasoned reflection. Step by step guided questions and answers. So we start with our topic or idea. And we use evidence and reason and step-by-step guided questions and answers to gain insight and understanding of the topic. So this is the analysis or the return back to self. So in the macrocosm, our goal is to know and show the self logos, or to know the self through the self logos perfection and mastery. So we'll say know and show the self just to make it read better. That's a noise that I make sometimes, I suppose. Let's get rid of this. Do a sound drop.
I ate a steak. I'm stupid. I'm drunk all the time, you know. I'm just like you.
Hey, me? What?
Fuck.
Fuck. Is that what I do? To know and show the self. Through self-logos, perfection and mastery. That's the meaning of life, or our purpose, or how we return. We have some spammers in the chat. I've taken away all my spam sound drops, I'm afraid. You ran out of I needed space to say
Bull testicles. Bull testicles.
bull testicles. Why? Because
I'm eating the testicles of this bull, and I'm eating it raw. Raw bull balls. This is raw buffalo balls.
that's funny to me. Right, Emma?
The more holes, the better.
Emma.
I guess, but UFOs might be Jesus.
That might be the case. So, to know and show the self through the self-logos, perfection and mastery as our purpose as intelligent beings. But in the microcosm, so that's the return with the dialectic to the self, because the self was our first idea, the first principle and cause of reality. In the microcosm, we are returning to the idea or topic of conversation. So as we're exploring different ideas in the text, that's what we return to. So we start with that idea. We use evidence or experience. Of course, the ultimate is the macrocosm, mind. With reason, the ultimate being the logos. Through step-by-step guided questions and answers, one person asks the question and make sure they answer the question being asked and not any other answer. Don't answer anything else. Don't ask yourself a question. Don't ask me questions. None of that horse shit that politicians and scammers and liars and murderers use to escape bringing the light, bringing truth into the light. Answer this question and this question only. So guided questions and answers. So there's a skill involved, leading to insight and understanding of the topic or of the self, which in the ultimate it's the self, but for us here it's the topic of the subject, and the purification of the false ideas. Purification of false beliefs. Not of the self, but of the topic, of the subject. So that's how the macrocosm of reality and the meaning of life plays out in the microcosm, allowing us to learn about both when we read a book like the one that we're reading here. See, the macrocosm reflected in the microcosm. So that's what is. But a dialectic has the same 4 steps. If it isn't. So you can do that one, because that's why we're reading. The microcosm, how is Harry relating to evidence and reason? Is he goalposting? Is he trying to lie or start fights? Is he gaining insight and understanding of the subject, or is he blocking those specifically because he's afraid of facing the nothingness of his beliefs? Because he doesn't want to purify the false beliefs of the subject and face the nothingness of his position and his life, having been led that way up until now? And maybe if he wants to ask a deeper question, his images of his parents, where he learnt it from, etc. So you can do that for Harry. And for the macrocosm, you could do it for belief itself. So for you, I'll leave this for you to do. So the sub-definition would be not the self, but the belief. And the microcosm, this would be if it wasn't, and this is if it is. You have the macro, and you would have the macro, and you would have the micro. Harry, give it a go. So this helps us understand what's going on. So having the terms that have the general scope over all of the divisions, so having the definition and demonstrations on the board, allow us to see the divisions. So now having this, we can make sense of what's going on in the conversation. And remember, that's a higher level of reading. We used the example a few episodes ago of, so let's say you're doing an exam and you haven't studied for the exam, and you might recognize, well, you know what I can do? I can figure out the way the examiner's mind thinks. What's the structure behind the thinking of the examiner? He always gives a funny answer, and he always gives a funny answer that I can rule out immediately. Banana. Get rid of banana. And he uses the idea, Statue of Liberty might be the correct answer. He'll use Statue of Freedom and Tower of Liberty. I've got to find the one that has both ideas, because that's how he thinks. I'm sure there are other ways of doing it, but that's an example. So we're doing the same thing. We want to understand if there's a structure behind the thinking of Joseph the dialectician, of the author of the book, and ultimately of reality itself. We're aligning our own thinking to the structure of the self-logos, which is, as we've got here, our purpose, the meaning of life. To align our own cognitive functioning to the inherent intelligibility or logos of reality, allowing us to function most justly, most goodly, most beautifully, and in a way that will allow us to reach our most personally meaningful goals, which is to know the mind and know the self with excellence, both in this lifetime and beyond. So we can practice that by seeing it in the text. Oh, hang on a second. We might be able to see Joseph doing this in every single dialogue he has. And we can expect Harry to try and get rid of evidence, get rid of reason, to block insight and understanding, to keep his personal false beliefs of the subject. It's a win-win.
Win.
And that is, and now I'm outside. Gotta go back inside. Now I'm back at the book. And that's what we can see Harry doing here. Counter-attacking, because the dialectic has two. So as we develop in that dialectic we have on the board, we can expect and anticipate and hopefully sufficiently understand so it's not going to draw us in. We're not going to get emotionally involved. We're not going to get wrapped up in it. We're not going to get interested in it. All the gossip, all the drama. No, obvious, boring. We've seen through it now. We're free from it. We've dissolved the power of the cause of all human problems by understanding it in principle. So we're not going to take it personally when Harry, or in your life, someone's belief part, someone you care about, their beliefs come up and they've had a new insight or they've done well, they start to counterattack it. It's not because this wonderful person is bad now. It's the expected counterattacks of beliefs that we are here specifically to deal with, because humanity is to develop the dialectic which has the truth and the humanness, the understanding, the logos, and the belief, the pathologos. Or in your life, had this great encounter with this person, oh no, here I am having this beautiful relationship with this beautiful person, and I expect this dork to come in and try and sabotage it. Yes, as a musician who does his best to play beautiful music, there's that guy whose reaction to truth and beauty is shit as a counterattack. Happens to imitate his parents, and the same things that he will shout at me to stop me playing music, he shouts at himself. That's why he can't play. Obvious, expected. So we can expect it with Harry. Oh, in our culture too, we talked about this yesterday. The idea that for our human species, if this is the nature of humanity, we can understand our human purpose as a species. The reason why we want to stop Armageddon and extinction caused by the belief-based groups of religion, conservatism, and capitalism. Or any belief-based group that seeks to enforce its ignorance on our species. Because we can master the truth, and we will necessarily surface every single kind of human clan belief that exists. As we start to say, hey, let's give health care to everyone, the racist will come and say, I want to see black people suffer. They will try and fight back. We don't care what they have to say in terms of truth, but we care about what they say so we can surface, oh, certain people from a German heritage don't like black people, or from a Jewish heritage don't like Muslim people, or from an American heritage don't like women. We need to surface, we will have to surface and understand every single human belief-based clan that will surface in opposition to truth and development, meaning not only will we be able to, if we do our jobs and become rational, wake up to ourselves, start developing some courage and character as a culture, become Hellenic, not only will we be able to master the truth and the dialectic to reach truth, we will have a big fucking catalog of all of the kinds of false beliefs that can come up in human existence that will oppose it. Meaning we could recognize that we might have a greater role as a species within a greater cosmos as dialecticians within the galaxy, or throughout the galaxy. If we fail, we go extinct. If we succeed, this may be on the horizon. Because we will have to. We will have to. Or wealth, hey, we can put an end to all human suffering and homelessness and unnecessary deaths from treatable medical conditions or starvation tomorrow. But every single kind of scummy billionaire fuckface will come out and say, no, I want you to suffer because I want to have power over you with my billions. Or we're better because mummy said we're a royal family. Or we're the skull and bones. We treat you like slaves. Or we are the precious Christians or the precious Jews. You are our goyim, or you're the heathens. You can be slaves. And that's just American culture. That's just Jewish culture. They will all come out and try and fight against the good. And they have fucking nukes and shit. So we need to be responsible about this. Yes. We're not punishing you for being ignorant. That's what it means to be human. We need to understand you, listen to you, not let you rule. When a child starts crying about something that, like, I don't get to eat ice cream for dinner, you don't beat the child, you listen to them. But you don't let them choose what they eat for dinner. We're letting the toddlers choose to eat ice cream for dinner every night. Can't do that. Only the ice cream for dinner for them is torturing hundreds of thousands of people to death every single fucking day, needlessly, for profit and sadistic pleasure. The Epstein billionaire class. So, that's just the truth of things. But it does show you that we can understand our purpose and how to reach the truth and anticipate the counterattacks individually as you gain insight and enlightenment, collectively as a species, and wonder about what might be that for the sake of which. If we can address all of the human belief-based, clan belief-based ways of being that have come to be in our species, that will come out of the woodwork, like moving a log that's been sitting there for a long time festering, and all of a sudden all of the bugs are scatter into the light. Yes, we're bringing into light the ignorance. The only way of doing that is through the dialectic, which involves recognizing the truth, or what is, and the other side, what isn't. The truth and the humanness. The logos and the pathologos. Understanding and belief. That's it. You can understand the entire human game, purpose, meaning of life, and future for our civilization with just two ideas. Logos and pathologos. Understanding and belief. Now, I should be excited. I'm a bit disheartened because of people I care about suffering the ignorance because we're not waking up to that. And the difficulty that that good people have in communicating this to others. So, plus I'm tired. Because I've been trying to stay alive under capitalism. And philosophy doesn't pay anything. So, I'm at the moment, I'm very tired. So, please excuse my, I don't know, lack of energy about the excitement that we can understand the nature of the nature and meaning of life with just two ideas, and understand the structure of both to break it down to its parts and use it to remove all human problems individually and collectively and reach our excellence. Should be exciting. Should be a party. Should be celebrating this every day. Every day should be Logos Day, where we celebrate how great that is to understand the meaning of life. Difficulty is, well, there are three aspects to difficulty. Difficulty is because belief, or Harry in the book, fight back against this, no one wants to listen. Because at the root, and you're going to fill in this one, the root problem is a false idea of self. No one wants to learn the self because everyone thinks they know the self because they've got a belief about themselves. So that's the first thing. People think they know already, so they don't want to learn. I know the meaning of life. I know what the self is. It's whatever you make it up to be for most people. It's all relative to your own personal truth. There's no meaning, you just make up meaning. There's no knowing of the self, you just whatever you want. Positive thinking. The second difficulty is people want to be entertained rather than learn. But we have funny sound drops.
Bull testicles. Bull testicles.
There's bull
Bull
testicles.
testicles. Bull testicles.
The third problem is the problem of the esoteric. If you say something meaningfully true in a simple way, it will go over the heads of people. So it will sound like we're saying something esoteric, or that's a weird philosophy you have, or that's an interesting Neoplatonic, New Age division, post-Hegelian view. No, it's just simple. Are you a self? Do you have to believe anyone? By the way, if you believed anyone about yourself, you might have a shitty view of yourself. Because your self is beyond belief. You don't have to believe anyone. You might have beliefs. Therefore, do you want to know what it is? Hey, do you have difficulty cooking if you don't know how to cook? So if you care about cooking, don't you want to know how to cook? Do you care about the self? Then you should know about it. That's that simple. It's not that hard. By the way, have you met people who don't want to learn? They're savagely tied to their ignorance. They don't want to learn about women because they grew up in a sexist family or a sexist religion. Oh. So, don't you want to know about the self? Don't you want to remove any false beliefs about the self that you're identified with? Or as the Oracle puts it,
Personality maxing requires you to look inward on a deeper level, and it's harder to fix. Because then you have to make fundamental changes to who you are as a person
And it's because it feels like a much more core component.
of themselves that they don't want to change.
Like, it's like, well, then if I change this, who am I?
yeah. If you're identified with the idea, you can't character max. The fourth reason that makes it difficult is the functioning of those beliefs that we carry as the nature of the human condition oppose understanding. So number one, they think they know already. Number two, they'd rather be entertained by a dancing monkey. That's not fair. There are some people who do champion understanding in the world and are entertaining and attractive and beautiful and engaging and all those sorts of things. So that's not fair. But a lot of people, it's dancing monkeys. So I'd rather be entertained. Number three, the third one. What did you just say? Oh yeah, esoteric. It'll be interpreted or go in an esoteric way, like it's something strange or unusual. And number four is they'll fight against it, because that's the nature of human problems. If human problems don't defend themselves, we wouldn't have human problems anymore. As we are trying to solve human problems, as humans, we have to face the catch-22 of that dilemma. The thing we want are blocked by the things that we have problems for. If it wasn't blocking what's good, it wouldn't be a problem. Therefore, human problems block what's good. Therefore, to learn the good thing to solve human problems is the very thing your problems won't allow. That's why you do it anyway. And develop courage and character along the way, and hopefully meet some good people like we have here in the text having the conversation. So, this is the expected counterattacks from against evidence, reason, step-by-step guided questions and answers, to block insight and understanding of the subject, and to prevent the purification of Harry's false beliefs that he loves. And he can't learn because he is identified. He can't character max, as the Oracle just told us. So that's where we are. So, here we are developing an understanding of whoops. Here we are developing using, not just in the microcosm and the specific conversation, but in general, we are gaining an understanding of the brilliant light of being. The example from Sai Baba, where he's in that house and just lit up with light. And there was that other example of, who was it? Mircea Eliade. Reports of the monks, see it on the board. Mircea Eliade at Mount Anthos, where their clothes lit up. And then we went on to talk about all these other different traditions. We'll talk about it. So we're understanding the macro. We are developing our understanding, well, through the dialectic that is being guided by Joseph. Oh shit, wrong one. Whoops.
Like literally suck my dick, dude.
Oh, hang
They're
on.
completely lying to you.
What is this? The damn Opie and Anthony? Okay, whatever.
Seems like it with all my wacky sound drops. So through this guided, step-by-step guided reflection of the dialectic from Joseph, we are reflecting on mind. The second last of our ultimate goals. Penultimate. And Aaliyah is asking, how do I actually reach that understanding? How do I understand it? So you could say that that's the ultimate goal, understanding, but it's also the so we could say third goal. 3, 2, 1. Now understanding is used after reaching 2, and then and also after reaching 1. So it's not, when we say 3, we don't mean it's the third. It's also the best. But anyway, understanding. She wants to learn understanding about the peak experience. And I'm outside again. Shit.
Get the fuck out!
Oh no, I need to get the fuck in. Actually,
The more holes, the better.
Emma, calm down, you gooner.
Gooners.
Goodness. So here we are talking about Sai Baba and the Mount Anthos accounts from Mircea Eliade, where they have that light experience, and then we're using that, so we're comparing and contrasting with the peak experience Jesus had in the Gospel of Mark, where that same light experience, so universal, was made sense of with the personification of Moses, because he represents leading people from captivity into a higher way of being. So you can imagine being captive in your physical world with physical appearances and beliefs, and then having this experience, you could be led to a different way of living. Let's get rid of Harry. Let's get him out of the way. Oops. And Elijah, because Elijah is said to restore all things. So you could see the rejuvenation, restoring, or healing aspect to that light experience. So we can hypothesize why someone without what we have, a language of understanding, might use these, what they do have, religious icons and images, to make sense of that peak experience. Aliyah says, well, for one thing, I would say that what's happening would be worth 1,000 miracles. Oh, and by the way, we can also infer why Jesus, after that experience, claimed to be of the nature of God, or the Son of Man, because he's participating in the divine. It's transpersonal, it's just intelligence, it's out of the physical world, so it's not going to end, it's divine. Transpersonal, we've been calling it. So we can make sense of the human drama. A glimpse into that peak experience, while also in the human condition, which is a struggle between his religious beliefs to make sense of that experience and how well he's done in developing understanding, but of course, being not a philosopher, doesn't have that skill. So demonstrating the counterattack in his life, as well as why he uses beliefs to make sense of that divine experience. And we can understand Jesus. Hooray. Imagine that. Imagine someone said, hey, you should believe in Jesus. No, don't have to. I understand him. Oh yeah, I understand him too. No, you have beliefs. It's different. You have to understand the nature of the human condition, the nature of belief, the difference between belief and understanding, the different accounts by Paul and Mark and Luke, and what they were all fighting for and why. And you'd also have to look at the turning point in Jesus' life, have an understanding of that experience so you can recognize it. If you saw a skateboarder doing a nollie kickflip 180, if you didn't have an understanding of those words, it'd just be like, oh, that's crazy. It's a crazy thing he just did. You wouldn't be able to understand it. Therefore, without the language of the Logos, you can't understand it. You won't have any idea why they might be saying, oh, let's build a tabernacle for Moses and Elijah. What does that mean? Just the language they had to make sense of that experience without understanding. And he went on to say he was the chosen one. Well, of course. Yeah. You heard of Eckhart Tolle and all these other people who've had a light experience and then go on to write books about how their way is to reach the end? Yeah, it's normal. It's also a cautionary tale because he doesn't address his beliefs, because addressing beliefs requires the dialectic, as well as understanding that peak experience requires that dialectic, and also the dialectic is used to reflect on that peak experience to know the self, which he didn't do. So we understand it. We could also understand those monks on that mount, whatever. What was it? Mount something. Mount Anthos. We could understand Sai Baba, what he was doing. We can understand Socrates and Plato and Parmenides if we wanted to. That's the thing with understanding. It's transpersonal. It's true for everyone for always. So, Aaliyah is coming to understand that experience that she hasn't heard about before, but she says, hang on, are you saying that there is some evidence out there that claims that some religious experiences, of course, she's using her language of religion. It's not religion, that's belief. It's philosophy or spirituality, you could say, because it's of the spirit. But that's an aside. Are you saying that there was some claims that these experiences are so intense that produce this physical light as well? I guess if what you're saying is right, I'll tell you that that is something that even I am having difficulty imagining. But if it did occur, I wouldn't be the same person I am now, that's for sure. Oh, a new life. Death of the old, birth of the new. So. And she's right, yeah, it should change your life. Be harder to seek the rat race of capitalism by being a banker if you know that there's something far more real and important and meaningful available to be known. So, she's becoming aware of that ousia. Now she's asking, well, how do I develop understanding? What happens, knowing and understanding that would be worth 1,000 miracles. I guess it's one of the stories about Jesus, but I've never heard it. What do you do with it? I mean, how do you study that kind of thing? So that's a good question about understanding. Compare and contrast. So how are the same and different from all those other examples, and especially within philosophy? That's how you study it. Elia says, is that how you studied Christianity comparatively? And he says, yes. And there's a call out to anybody out there in the internet land. Are you aware of this workbook that they used at Golden West to study comparative Christianity or comparative religion? Because we want to get our hands on it. Maybe we'll read it on a channel. I had a class at Golden West that we used a Land's synopsis of the 4 Gospels and Key's study of the Gospels and Perrin's intro. They're all good works. We used a workbook to put it together. So 3 more books on our reading list to get complete mastery of this one. Aaliyah said, oh, I'd like to get into something like that. Well, maybe she can subscribe to the channel if she's out there. By the way, you can see these experiences reported in Plato, Tibetan philosophy, Korean Buddhism, Hinduism, Chinese philosophy, shamanism, just to mention a few traditions. For myself, I find that studying and reflecting on similar stories gives you an appreciation of the greatness of the figures who experience them, an insight into the nature of reality, and the need to fashion your own philosophy so that it will be broad enough to contain room for everything that's meaningful. And what does it mean to Christianity? Well, biblical figures call that event the parousia, which you should probably look up because ousia is the actual word. Now let's see what parousia means. Right, so parousia, used by in Christian theology, means the arrival or the second coming of Jesus Christ, or to be in the presence of the divine. Because para means beside, and ousia, we've already defined, it's being or mind or intelligence or the knowingness, the eye of the soul. So interesting that they use the word beside ousia, when the real word is just ousia. That's what the experience is. It's called ousia. So, that's interesting. So even in Christianity, they call it beside. They have the word for it from the Greek. They have to borrow the language of the actual language, which is what we do, which is the logos, ousia, but they have to not allow you to have it because you are a small being that have to be ruled by Paul's religious bullshit and belief. So you're beside ousia, which is not the case. You're participating in ousia. Aaliyah says, I don't know what to say. And then Harry jumps in an expected way, as the counterattack to ousia, insight, and understanding, logos. So there's our counterattack from the believer to experience, evidence, and reason. So we can even see that this text, or how all conversations that you may have, unfold as a reflection of reality itself, and the purpose and meaning of life, and the nature of human drama itself. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
So, you can develop an understanding that is so broad, and you're supposed to develop your own understanding that is so broad that will be able to contain room for anything that's meaningful, not just what you're told by your parents or preacher or Bible, including all of these traditions: Buddhism, Hinduism, Tibetan philosophy, Chinese philosophy, shamanism, all of them. Why not have an understanding that understands all of it? I mentioned the hypotheses of Parmenides, by the way. That might be just such a thing, which is just the use of the dialectic to explore all of the possible ways of thinking, which should incorporate all of these. But if you wanted to, you could also compare and contrast how well each of them did. So, Aaliyah, bring back up a cast of characters. That guy's not there. What does this mean about Christianity? Joseph. Damn it. Biblical authorities call the event parousia, which we now know means to be beside the divine, which is interesting because we would just use the word ousia. I'm not sure what to say, says Aaliyah. You may not be sure, but I am. It's just what I thought. You start out by getting people to study comparative religions, and then you steer them into philosophy to make everything seem right, don't you? I'm having trouble steering myself through this philosophical journey, and you believe I'm leading others? I have trouble. I'm having trouble steering myself through this philosophical journey, and you believe I'm leading others? If others want to go along for the ride, that's fine. But I'm not proselytizing. It may seem different to you, but that's the way it is. I'm still new at this game, and haven't done all my homework on all those religions and philosophies, but I do intend to explore them more fully sometime. There are people around here, and you know some of them, who enjoy explaining these ideas, so you could fit right in. You know what? You've got to be kidding. I don't believe you. You confuse the everyday person and attract the bright ones into your philosophy, don't you? I'm not sure what I can say you get out of it, but I know what effect it has. All you are trying to do is wreck the lives of believers. You don't really care one way or the other. You take the best and show it's not unique. You even make the best, his favorite. You even make believe there are modern Jesus types, don't you? You know what else you do? You look for contradictions in order to get others to deny their faith. You sound like someone interested in saving the true faith, but that's crap. I've heard it all before. What you really do is rub those contradictions in the nose of believers. Like people disciplining their dogs. They rub their noses in it. But what they're really doing is having sadistic fun and feeling smug and superior. The truth is that believers have something that you non-believers envy. You can't force it. It has to move you. And when it does, you can get good feelings out of it. And group acceptance too. Paused. So, within the Joe Rogan sphere, I recognize that, hang on a second, the method of comedy for the conservative comedians or right-wingers, it's all the same. There's no punchlines, there's no setup, it's just being cruel and smug. And we've also recognized that while belief can't do good, it takes what it can do, doing harm, as a surrogate for knowing. Therefore, you have to find enjoyment and pleasure in what belief can do, doing harm, which is called sadism. So, instead of enlightenment or benefit through the dialectic, sadistic. Believers who take their model of what it means to be knowing as a believer, sadists. Do harm and feel smug about it. So, sadistic fun, feeling smug and superior, is what he is projecting. It's a confession. It's projecting his beliefs. But he also has told the truth by saying, you can't do it, so you're a slave. You have to just cross your fingers and hope and pray that something changes you. And you get good feelings out of being a believer and group acceptance. That's what they get out of it. And those good feelings, by the way, he mentioned himself. Sadistic fun, feeling smug and superior, is what believers get out of, well, so this, as the politician or religious official or CEO has their hand in the pocket of the believer and in the bra of their wife or child, Epstein, what they get in return for turning a blind eye to this or allowing this to happen to them is a good feelings when they be sadistic. So the MAGA being sadistic to the immigrants as they join ICE, or to women as they, etc., etc., pick any belief-based group. The IDF as they torture and abuse and genocide the Palestinians, feeling very sadistically, having sadistic fun, and we know that because it's streamed in 4K. They also get to feel smug and superior. These, the most ignorant, haven't gone through the work of understanding, but they can feel smug and superior. That's the good feelings. Sadistic fun, smug and superior, and they get a sense of group acceptance. We're all together when we wear the MAGA hat, where we wear the Nazi whatever, where we wear the Jewish star of genocide or whatever. So, the believer telling on himself. So, in response to truth, understanding, and functioning as a good person to help somebody understand, the reaction is to reinterpret it as attacking believers. So, This paragraph demonstrates the nature of all human problems. What brings us in, why it functions in opposition to what's good and true, what people get out of it. There we go. Pretty good book, huh? Worth reading? Joseph. Perhaps I don't think so. No, perhaps, but I don't think so. Which of these teachings attracts and magnifies neurotic tendencies and that undermine the use of the mind? Wow. Here we go. Which of these teachings attracts and magnifies neurotic tendencies that undermines the use of the mind? And which, on the other hand, allows for personal growth as it enhances the use of understanding? You will agree one creates divisions and dissensions, while the other assists in unifying mankind. Wow, isn't that a fantastic confirmation of the theory we've been developing? We've been saying that, or hypothesizing, through reason and evidence and reflection, that we can use words like one or good, so there's our benefit or growth, true, so good, true, and one, unification within the soul and our species, from understanding by following rational steps to the intelligible, whereas belief has irrational steps to reach an unintelligible or a bad goal, leading to outcomes that are bad, false, and creates division, conflict, and harm. And then we saw it right there. He actually uses the same words, unification or oneness, and division in its opposition. We've been talking about personal growth as opposed to the stagnance of being stagnant of belief. So personal growth through the enhancing of the use of understanding, there's our dialectic, while belief attracts and magnifies our neurotic tendencies. I've been talking about how, well, I don't think we've been talking about this yet, but our own personal pathologos beliefs, scammers will attract people with similar ones. So people with a similar enough belief to Trump will vote MAGA, to Hitler will be a Nazi, to Stalin, etc., etc. So it attracts people with a similar sick belief and magnifies it. So he's saying neurotic tendencies. That would be the word that we would use in a cafe with people like this, but we have understood it as the pathologos beliefs. And we're saying, didn't we just say right a second ago, that a few moments ago, that in our dialectic, so that kind of summarizes our map here. Our development is through enhancing the understanding in its mastery through the skill and art of the dialectic. In our growth, we just defined exactly what that growth was. But we also said that belief functions in opposition to any one of those steps. Oops. And here we have it in the text, confirming our hypothesis. So, belief undermines the use of the mind, attracts and magnifies our problems or neurotic tendencies, while understanding allows for personal growth, which we've just mapped out, and enhances the use of understanding. So belief creates divisions, while one assists in unifying mankind. Really laid it out, didn't he? Hooray. Harry, how noble of you to make it sound How noble you make it sound with your two possibilities. The point is that there is plenty of stuff to criticize. Why direct it at something that serves a deep emotional need? So this is that same bullshit that I was getting mad about a couple of episodes back. We need to allow belief because it meets an emotional need. Some people are too stupid for actual meaning and growth and enlightenment. Some people are too stupid to solve their problems. Some people are too stupid to stop being harmful to themselves and others. They need religious beliefs because they've got no meaning. So this is the equivalent argument. Before it was about meaning, now it's an emotional need. Makes me vomit every time I hear a philosopher or anyone on anywhere say, well, actually, religion served a good purpose for culture. It brought people together. It helped them explain things that they were too stupid to understand, because they're too stupid, ignoring all of the ancient Greeks and Hellenics, of course. And it makes an emotional need, gives them a feeling of togetherness, a sense of home. No, it gives them meaning as well, because you and I know there's no meaning to life, but to some people they can't handle that and they need religion. Bullshit, you're both wrong, you idiot.
I don't know if you know this, but like weird dudes exist everywhere.
Weird dudes exist everywhere. Right, Emma?
If you're experiencing a mental health episode,
Why can't these guys shut up, whether or not it's about Jesus?
That's what I'm saying. Why can't these guys shut up, whether or not it's about belief? Right, so, same bullshit. Hey, why don't you direct your criticism somewhere else, rather than religion or belief that serves a deep emotional need? If you can't join it, why chop it? I don't believe in Santa Claus, but I don't go around undermining the believers of it. Do you also give the same advice when they in turn become, hey, this is what we were saying. Old Aunt Betty might not blow herself up so she doesn't look like a fundamentalist extremist, but she'll vote for Trump. He'll kill the Palestinian people, do a genocide, kill the Cubans and the Palestinians and, well, everyone. She'll do it to her kids. And she'll be in conflict within her own soul. So her life matters, her self matters. Whoever she does have influence over, even if it's their own children. Maybe she becomes a boss, politician or whatever, who cares? But also, she can get galvanized and manipulated by political leaders. So, ever notice that it's the stupid Christians who we should allow to have their meaning and to have their emotional needs met with this bullshit lies that undermine everything good and is the cause of all human conflict and suffering? Notice it's those are the ones that vote for MAGA, that vote conservative, that are manipulated by the worst of our species. Ever notice? Have you noticed? Have you noticed? Right? We need the 10 Commandments in the schools, says those fuckheads who don't believe it themselves but know that it's... Can you quote the 10 Commandments? Ooh, I can't. It's for the dumb people, so we can tell them the war that we want them to die in is for Jesus, so we can profit. Anyway. Fuck you, Harry, with this point that some people are too stupid and they need it for their emotional needs. Bullshit. Meet your emotional needs properly, son. I need to kick this dog because it gives my life meaning. It meets it and helps me get out my aggression and makes me meet an emotional need by kicking this dog. You wouldn't say it then. Anyway, you get the idea. You get the idea. You just see it so often. The amount of academics who try and save religion by this garbage makes me facepalm. Makes me say,
You actually are too stupid to interact with the rest of the world. You should literally be in a labor camp for the rest of your life. You should be in the mines for the rest of your life. You should lose the right to vote because you're such a fucking idiot.
Thank you. You voiced my feelings perfectly. Right. Joseph responds, probably more articulately than me just then. Do you have... No, I thought actually I articulated it very well. So screw you.
You're a baby. You're a little baby.
Exactly, if you disagree.
Listen and learn, morons. This is gangster.
That's right. Do you also give the same advice when they in turn become political? And insist their values become the law of the land? What did you just say? Do you also caution them when they become hostile to other forms of religious expression? Put the 10 Commandments up in school and go and die in Iran. Because we are fuckheads. I mean conservatives. I mean religious. I mean capitalists. I mean all three. Belief. Harry, leave the old granny with her well-meaning. What if they kill people? And they insist that all children should be learned that women are less than men and shouldn't speak up because the Bible says so. Or slavery and murder is good because we found it in the Bible. Or Armageddon is good because of Paul's bullshit in the Bible. Not so well-meaning anymore. Maybe time to grow a backbone and say not just fundamentalist religion, but all belief-based systems. Don't allow doctors to function with belief. Don't allow pilots. Don't allow mechanics. But it's my belief I should do surgery. Nope. Fuck off. You don't get to do surgery with belief. You have to A, develop understanding and experience, and B, get rid of any beliefs that conflict with truth. If it's your belief that this patient has to die, you don't get to be a doctor. That's obvious and rational. It would be sadistic to allow anything otherwise. Then why the fuck can't we have the balls to say, no politician can ever be a politician without demonstrating an understanding of the nature of the soul, what is required for its development, and how to do so in harmony with the laws of reality and to create systems in harmony with all life. If you don't understand that, get a different job. Not only understanding that, but have gone through the process of removing any belief that opposes understanding. I don't give a fuck if you hate Muslims. You can't kill Muslims. I don't care if you think billionaires are better. They are not. We have to demand understanding and a purification of belief for every political figure, religious figure, or anyone in a position of authority, like we do for everything else other than politics and religion. That's called growing the fuck up. Same thing for our soul. We can't allow our lives and souls to be ruled by belief. Because they're lies. The skill we're here to develop, as we've demonstrated, the art of understanding. Our problems are solved by using that understanding to purify our beliefs. And our excellence is reached through the development of that understanding to know the mind and the self. That's meaning. There's your emotional needs, or the fulfillment of them. Tell your friends. But that's not polite. Bullshit. How polite are you when you're allowing the ignorance of religion and belief to insist that their laws become the laws of the land, despite them being opposed to reason, evidence, goodness, truth, and unity? And when they become hostile to those not in their own belief clan. In the book, hostile to other forms of religion, but you can say Nazis to the whites, sexists to the women, MAGA to the woke. Same. It's just the same thing. It's very simple. Remember 2 words we said earlier? Belief and understanding? Anyway. What would you say to that, Mr. Harry? Mr. no talk about politics and religion. You hide behind questions like a kid behind his mother's skirt. Oh, fuck this Harry guy. How did Aaliyah end up with this jabroni? I suppose, well, it's a puzzle, isn't it? Aaliyah did mention that she grew up with similar men in her life when she was young, and we're totally shipping Aaliyah with Joseph because fuck this Harry guy. Hey, Harry.
Unbelievable sluts these days.
You're unbelievable, Harry.
Why can't these guys shut up? Whether or not it's about Jesus.
That's right, Harry. Why
He's
you?
so far up his own ass.
Thank you, Emma. Anyway. You hide behind questions like a kid behind his mother's skirt. Why don't you just say what you think? Are you afraid? Aren't you and those like you really afraid of being labeled the Antichrist? Oh, fuck me. This is a good book because I'm having this reaction. Because it's so true. This book is brilliant. It's a fucking masterpiece. It's exactly what they would say. Anyway, let's see what the reaction is. Is that all it takes? Merely by differing from an interpretation accepted by the many, you become the Antichrist? Ooh, snap. But I will answer you, Harry. When you figure out what Christ means, then I bet you'll see something worth seeing. Oh. Harry just said...
Wrong. You're so wrong. But that's okay. We're all allowed to be wrong sometimes.
You're wrong, buddy, but it's okay. You're allowed to be wrong sometimes. Because you can figure it out.
There's only two options at the end of an argument. One, you're wrong, but now you always get to be right about that topic going forward. So you get to learn something, which is always a plus. Or two, you're right and you get to revel in being right. It's a win.
And she spit on him also.
And also that.
I'm too pure. The more holes, the better.
Damn, you really are a gooner.
You'll see something worth seeing if you figure out what the word Christ means. What? Then you'll be surprised who really are the Antichrists. Oh, that make-believe professor is nothing other than bull. And that is an insult. All you do is pile it on higher and deeper. Oh. He's jumped from the personal attacks, your Antichrist, as a way of fighting against reason through conflict. Put that on the board, I suppose. What color? Purple. So, the step of reason, which was the division. Now, in the negative side of the dialectic, belief functions in opposition to evidence by saying, well, what he's saying, shut up, look somewhere else. And against reason by trying to fight instead. Now we've had personal attacks. Called him the Antichrist. And of course, there are inherent threats in that as well. And we've attacked the teacher. The O make-believe professor. Oh no, is it attacking the teacher? Is we calling him a... he's not. No, he's not. Oh, I'm sorry. I misinterpreted this. That O make-believe professor. I don't think he's talking about the professor at Golden West that helped him to learn this. I think he's actually talking about Joseph himself. So, get rid of this one. So you're a make-believe professor, and that's nothing but bull, and I'm insulting you, and I will slap you with my glove and challenge you to a duel. All you do is pile it on higher and deeper. Joseph says, if you want to understand, you have to see for yourself. That's what he's been helping Aaliyah to do, and us by giving us all of these things we can have a look at ourselves. Harry. It just dawned on me what's wrong. When you study the Bible in college, you lose your faith because you guys learn from rationalists, not Christians. So he is addressing the teacher. Now, learning is what you get after critical thinking is over. Boom.
I would scoop the moon.
In a cup for you.
Fuck happened? I was doing a sound drop medley and I changed screens. We would scoop the moon in the cup for Harry for saying this. Learning is what you get after critical thinking is over. Oh, we've just defined what learning is. Pretty cool? Now we have been outlining exactly the kind of learning that we are here to do as our purpose and meaning of life, and how the stages of critical thinking as the dialectic. But in essence, learning is what you get after critical thinking is over, or the conclusion stage of the dialectic. Put it on a bumper sticker. Give me 10 points on the back end if you sell them at a merch store. Harry. Oh God. Another critical thinking course. Well, if you want to learn, you first have to see the issue, then squeeze the answers out of the text. That's why we reflect so much on the text. And we're so delighted when we see our hypotheses confirmed in the text, and why we want to make sure the terminology and quotes come from the text. It's learning. To see the issue and then squeeze the answers out of the text. But it is not easy because you have to pass through not easy to do or not easy to pronounce. It's not easy because you have to pass through perplexity and doubt. That's inevitable if understanding is to be reached. So we talked about earlier, I think, was the expression uncomfortable or uncertain. You have to, to Aaliyah. Aaliyah is curious about testing all of these ideas that have come up by her own, getting the book, opening it up, having a read, going through that critical thinking and concluding, learning. But she's not sure if she wants to because she doesn't know where it's going. And Joseph says you have to put up with uncertainty. So what? You enjoy it. So where's the problem? And we talked about other expressions you might hear from artists have to be comfortable in the uncomfortable, in the not knowing. We even pointed out that this is aporia, or philosophical ignorance. To be stung, to realize you don't know something is a stage of enlightenment that believers never reach because they have that sadistic pleasure, smug certainty and cruelty. The certainty instead of realizing they don't know. So, and we talk about playing a game. When you play hide and seek, it's fun to not know where everyone is headed and then go and play the game of finding out. It's fun to not know whether or not the Umbrella will get the T-virus or whatever in Resident Evil, but it's fun to find out for yourself. So here we have that expression given to, being expressed to Harry. Yeah, Harry. You have to read it for yourself. Learn critical thinking, see it for yourself, and be okay with not knowing, or pass through perplexity and doubt as a necessary element of understanding. Which again, understanding in the text is what brings personal growth, enhances brings personal growth and unifies your soul and mankind. Therefore, the meaning of life. Belief, on the other hand, attracts and magnifies neurotic tendencies, undermines the use of the mind, creates division, dissensions, and conflict. So you're going to pass through that not knowing. Ever noticed it's the most stupid people who are most afraid of learning because they don't want to deal with that feeling of not knowingness? Not a blame game. We have to learn what would allow them to develop courage and what they faced in childhood. If you're not a loyal member of the belief, well, we allow parents to do whatever the fuck they want to their kids. That's terrible. We also punish students for not knowing the answers to questions. We punish people for not knowing how to make a living under a capitalist hellscape. It's not that you're homeless because of the billionaires that own all the money in the houses. It's because you are wrong. Punishment. So, we want to understand what makes it difficult to pass through perplexity and doubt, and do our best to create the conditions for doing that, either in a dialectic reflection, in the reading that we're doing here, in dream analysis, and ultimately as a society. Harry's response to that? You know why I don't go through the effort? I won't, because there is no need to. I already have an interpretation, so it's not going to prove anything. Your conclusions wouldn't be the only ones to draw anyway. So why don't we just skip this topic? It's only your interpretation anyway. Say, waiter, I do believe I need another cup of coffee. So, that very thing that had me rubbing my face earlier in the stream and frustrated was, I said, there are certain things that make it difficult to communicate this. So as wonderful as it is to be able to understand the nature of humanity and the meaning of life and be able to even express it with just two ideas, or one if you want to bring the two together in the dialectic, it is frustrating to see human beings suffering in ignorance, especially ones you care about deeply. And the frustrating thing is the difficulty in communicating the truth. People already think they know. It's what, and this is one of the people already think they know. They'd rather be entertained. It goes over their head, or they meet truth, understanding, and goodness in the way Harry does. They interpret it as bad. Cruelty. They think, oh, you're just lying because that's what I do and my family does. So you're doing that too. They don't know any better. They don't know another way of being. So they react to the best people in the worst ways. So, and here we have the same thing. We have Harry demonstrating that, relating to the best person doing the best kind of thing in the worst kind of ways, calling him the Antichrist and all this shit, and being a real dick to him. And we have him saying here too, I don't want to go through the effort of learning. The effort of learning what understanding is, practicing the dialectic as the art of understanding, as a skill. Figuring out the answers to these questions of belief versus interpretation by doing those exercises to do with the Bible, just as a way of doing it. I don't want to know the nature of mind as the way Aliyah is learning about by learning to understand Usia. I don't want to definitely understand the self because I already know all that. Why? Because it's an interpretation and that's all there is. So that's how we can see that all of these things that we've outlined as the most important necessary things can be brushed away with this belief. Everything is relative to personal interpretation. Everything is relative to interpretation, perspective, beliefs, all that horseshit. So you could be talking to the best person in the world that maybe it's taken you 1,000 lifetimes to run into. And gone. Not only gone, but you could treat him in the worst way. Because that's just your interpretation, pal. So I'm not going to bother. Why put in the effort? Why go through perplexity and doubt? Just to get insight, discovery, to get discovery, insight, understanding, and the 2 levels of enlightenment, 2 kinds of enlightenment. Fulfill my purpose, escape my problems, escape the chains of problems and the prison of negative reincarnation. Fuck all that. I've got my interpretation, that's just as good. And if my religious, political, or CEO, religious figure, religious authority, political figure, or CEO tells me to march in and kill those people for their fun and profit, well, that's my historical role. If I happen to be born Muslim, I'll march under the Muslim banner. If I happen to be born Christian, I'll march under that banner. If I happen to be born a billionaire, I'll march under that banner too. Ignorance, division, cruelty, and suffering, that's all because I already know better. Therefore, nature of humanity and its injustice and suffering, one word, starts with B, and sounds like belief. The nature of how to remove, solve human problems and reach our excellence starts with U and sounds like understanding. And we're learning specifically what's involved in it, where it will lead, and what it's like to be in that human-to-human interaction as a dialectician to help someone who's suffering from belief as we once were ourselves to be in this position. We're all humans. We all have to go through this human transition from belief to understanding. So we're learning about what's involved in that process. Also, we're learning the significance of having someone like Aliyah around. Different energy, isn't there? Women and men, as we're demonstrating, are the same in their ability to participate in the logos and meaning and reason and the human excellence, but in different ways. Harry and Joseph can get a bit, myopic? Can get wrapped up in the particulars and get into fights, whereas Aliyah comes in and says, hey, you guys grow up, and then brings the conversation back, has a different kind of a perspective, different kind of an energy. She also has different abilities that she can make use of. She's been using clever innuendo and feminine wiles to make sure a Harry doesn't just go completely off the deep end or just leave, encouraging him to do better. Hey, and if we're shipping Joseph and Aliyah, maybe it's also encouraging Joseph to stay at it. A mediating force, different perspective, different energy. So in some ways, women are different. Different strengths and positives, and maybe the two can complement each other. What kind of a dialectical pair would Joseph and Aliyah make? What sort of works would they be able to make as objects of rationality and reflection for humanity? Things to wonder about. So, lots of great insights today. Productive stream and super fun, despite the frustration of the difficulty in sharing it with others, but that's what we're here to learn as well. That's part of the art. Also, what Leah has been asking about, how do we understand? We had a fun demonstration of that because we developed a whole bunch of hypotheses on the board as a result of the Usia reflection on the evidence and experiences from the text through reason, building it step by step, and then testing it in the text, making sure this is in the text, and even we see confirmation in the text as we read on. So creating a hypothesis, not a belief, and testing it, allowing us to actually improve it, add to it. So we've been demonstrating this movement of belief to understanding today as well as learning about it. So it's a win-win.
It's a win-win. Win-win-win-win-win. It's a win-win-win-win-win-win. It's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win.
Lots of winning, right?
Finest video of all time. One of the greatest pieces of art ever created.
Thank you. I'm glad someone said it. Thank you so much. Emma, cut it out. That's being a gooner. We're going to ignore Emma's goonish ways.
Do a poggers.
Gooners.
Gooners.
Some goons and some gooners and some weirdos.
And we'll remember that positive compliment I made my soundboard tell me about. What was it? Greatest piece of art? I'm going to pull it up. I forgot what it said.
Finest video of all time. One of the greatest pieces of art ever created.
Wow. We might even be able to say that about the text that we're reading. Because, I mean, what a goddamn masterpiece for it to contain all this. So, yes, fantastic video. Perhaps one of the greatest pieces, what was it? Pieces of art ever created?
Finest video of all time. One of the greatest pieces of art ever created.
Ever created. Is today's video.
The T-Virus will transform me into an epic creation.
And I hope this reflection is in transforming you into an epic creation as well. Super fun. Share with your friends. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.